why Henry Cavill didn't agree with James Gunn's Superman. This is like an exciting video today, guys. I don't know if it's going to be clickbait or if this is something Henry Cavill's actually said. I'm not really sure. Original video's in the description.
Superman is not misunderstood by accident. When filmmakers get Superman wrong,
By accident? He's not misunderstood by accident. Isn't he always misunderstood by accident? I don't know. Put what you think in the comments. Don't you think that people are actually trying to get it? Or do you think that they're purposefully like, I'm gonna mess this up?
it's almost always because they misunderstand what he represents, not what he
I
can
would call that an accident. Me personally, but I'm just saying.
do. Powers are easy. Flight, strength, heat vision, that's surface level. The real difficulty lies in understanding Superman as an idea, not a man. And that's where the current DCU vision immediately collapses. One image can expose everything. There's a behind-the-scenes photo of Henry Cavill wearing the classic Superman suit during early testing, before the extreme bulking, before the final polish. Physically, he wasn't at his peak yet, but even then, the presence was undeniable. The posture, the stillness, the eyes. That image communicates Superman without dialogue.
Chris Reeve definitely looked better, but Chris Reeve was a lot buffer than Henry Cavill was at that point. So that makes sense. But I do think that Henry Cavill, I think that he looks good like that. I do. But the shadowing is wrong on his face. His nose, the shadow goes all the way over to here. It changes the shape of his face. It doesn't look like him. I don't know why people are raving about this photo. I think it's cool. But to me, it looks like a guy in a costume, whereas Christopher Reeve doesn't. So his suit that he gets for the movie, that looks like Superman to me. But this, I don't know. I don't get what everybody else sees. Help me out. I'm not sure. I don't get it.
Without explanation. You don't see insecurity. You don't see hesitation. You don't see fear. You see certainty. The problem with the current interpretation
All right. If we're comparing the 1978 classic Superman suit to the prototype version of not the best Superman suit in the world, you're already swaying people, because I like the movie. I liked it a lot. I gave it about an 8.2 out of 10. And not a big fan of that suit. Not a big fan of that suit. So that's a good place to start, buddy. Good place to start.
Is that Superman is being framed not as a symbol, but as a participant. Just another guy navigating a chaotic...
By the way, Justice Tube is an awesome name.
World. Just another hero reacting instead of leading. That may work.
Now that though, see, let's go back. What did I do? Right here. These
navigating
pictures,
a chaotic world.
He looks good to me in those pics. When I saw those pics, I was like, that looks good. He looks, it looks legit. You know what I'm saying? For behind the scenes pics especially. So I don't know.
Just another hero reacting instead of leading. That may work for street-level characters. It may even work for certain gods, but it does not work for Superman. When you reduce Superman to someone...
Is that AI? Did it say that?
Work for certain gods, but it does not work for Superman.
Is that not AI? Did he actually film that? That's got to be AI, right?
When you reduce Superman to someone who is constantly losing, constantly being rescued, constantly overwhelmed, you're not making him relatable. You're erasing the very reason he exists. Superman was never meant to represent struggle in the physical sense.
Yeah, but in Man of Steel, he struggled a lot. He struggled a lot in Man of Steel. Here's a perfect example. With that beer in the face. He struggled a lot. And he needs to struggle. But you don't have to make the struggle because of his physical inability. Like, let's go back to 1978 Christopher Reeve. 2 missiles. Oh, that is his physical inability. You get what I'm saying, though. It's not because he's not strong enough. It's because the villain has overwhelmed him in a way that he doesn't expect. Which is how Zod fought Superman. He got overwhelmed. Which is how Lex Luthor in James Gunn's Superman did, he overwhelmed him with his own ability and power, something he didn't expect. When we always have to make a bad guy that's more strong, or we have to take away his powers, I don't like that as much. But I do like it when we're coming up with logical reasons why he's overwhelmed.
Represents moral struggle, the challenge of being all-powerful in an imperfect world and still choosing compassion over control.
See, but that's what James Gunn's Superman did. Just to save a dog, he sacrificed himself and gave himself and turned himself in. Lois thought it was a bad idea. You know why she thought it was a bad idea? Because she knows, just as he knows, there's a possibility there could be a trick up their sleeve. They know kryptonite exists. They know that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So he knew it was a risk. That's exactly what happens in this movie, too.
The argument is that Superman needs to fail to feel human, then there is already a perfect example of how to do that properly. Not through humiliation, not through constant physical defeat, but through emotional distraction. The courtroom scene in Batman Forever Superman is the best representation of Superman's true failure. And
Batman what? Superman? What?
Courtroom scene in Batman Forever Superman
Batman Forever Superman
is the best
I want to
representation.
hear that again.
But through emotional distraction. The courtroom scene in Batman Forever Superman is the best representation of Superman's true failure, and most people completely miss it. Superman
Validity. No, I'm just kidding with you, Justice Tube.
has super hearing. He can sense danger before it happens. We've seen this clearly in Man of Steel. As a child, he couldn't control the noise of the world. Every sound overwhelmed him. And it was his mother who taught him the most important lesson of all: focus. Choose what you want to hear. Choose what matters. That moment wasn't just about powers. It was about responsibility. Once
It was a good moment. I really loved and appreciated that moment from the moment I saw it in the first trailer. Was it in the first? Not the first trailer, you know, those teaser stuff, but when I first saw it in the trailer. There we go. God.
Clark understands his role, once he accepts that his purpose is to protect humanity, we see him constantly reacting to danger before it happens. He hears screams across cities. He senses threats across continents. That's Superman operating at.
Isn't that what he did in Superman 2025? He reacted to danger before it happened. I mean, he kept the people from getting smashed by the kaiju. He kept the dog from getting smashed by the kaiju. He kept the people from getting burned by the kaiju. He stopped stuff before it happened. Right? Like, right? Am I wrong? Let me know.
His full awareness. But in the courtroom scene, something different happens. For the first time, Superman doesn't fail because he's weak. He fails because he's mentally burdened. He walks into that courtroom already defeated, not physically, but emotionally. He's surrounded by judgment, accusations, blame,
All
and
good
doubt.
points.
People aren't questioning his strength anymore. They're questioning his right to exist.
Right.
And for the first time, Superman isn't listening to the world for danger. He's listening to the world's opinion of him. That's why he doesn't sense the bomb. Not because he can't, but because his consciousness is elsewhere.
I don't think we need an excuse why he can't sense the bomb. I just think that he doesn't X-ray all the time. We saw that in Man of Steel. Like, it hurts and he has to control it, you know? I don't think we need a reason why he didn't sense the bomb. Is that a big thing? Do people complain? People have been complaining that to me, you know? So I think him not sensing the bomb is fine. He sensed it right as it went off, but it was too late. Unless he wanted to break everybody's necks, whooshing them out of there.
His mind is occupied by guilt, by self-doubt, by the crushing weight of being misunderstood. He's not scanning for threats, he's questioning himself. And that moment of distraction costs lives. That is failure done right, not humiliation. Not Superman getting beaten down for spectacle, but a god failing because he allowed human judgment to cloud his divine responsibility. That scene doesn't weaken Superman, it deepens him. You can see this disconnect not just in tone, but in visual language. The costume itself communicates confusion. It's thick in places it shouldn't be, awkwardly structured, and somehow still.
It is weird how many dudes are complaining about that suit not being tight enough. I'm one of them. I wish it was tighter. I don't hate the suit. I don't think it's garbage, but I think it missed the mark. I really do. I think it could be better. And it's not because of the cape. It's not because of the trunks. It's not because of the belt. It's not because of the symbol. It's not because of the lines. It's because of the texture. The boots and the collar, I could take them or leave them, but it's the texture.
Fails to enhance Superman's silhouette. Superman's suit is not armor. It's not tactical gear. It's not meant to look heavy. It's meant to look iconic, clean lines.
It depends. It just depends on the storyline, you know?
Heroic proportion.
New 52 is definitely more of an armor, you know? I think that's even the one where he touches the thing and it's armor.
Timeless design. When the costume looks like it's weighing the character down, it subconsciously tells the audience that Superman himself is burdened,
I never felt
restrained,
that.
diminished. Krypton is not just a backstory location. It's a warning. A civilization that collapsed not because it lacked power, but because it lacked humility. In Man of Steel, Jor-El understood this. He didn't send his son to Earth to rebuild Krypton. He sent him to be better than Krypton. That distinction matters. Jor-El accepted that his people were beyond saving. He took responsibility for their failure, and in Instead of passing that failure forward, he chose hope for his son and for humanity. Contrast that with the current portrayal, where Kryptonians feel less like enlightened scientists and more like generic conquerors. Their motivations feel shallow.
I did not like that change. Did not like it. I think he did it well. I think he made the righteousness of Superman work out well because of it. But I didn't like the take. Does that make sense? I didn't see a lot of people take that and they say, "Oh, it shouldn't be that way, so therefore it's bad." Just because it's not your version doesn't mean it's bad. My version of Superman hasn't happened yet. Closest would probably be George Reeves, but we didn't get a movie out of George Reeves, unless you count Superman and the Mole Men. But I don't know. I am a Golden Age guy, and none of these movies have been what I want. So I have to judge them for what they are. And I don't think people are doing that. They're not judging it for what it is. They're judging it for what they want it to be.
Intelligence feels performative. The emotional weight is gone.
It'll be like me going in and watching a spy movie and judging it because it wasn't funny. It's like, this isn't a comedy. It's a spy movie. You know what I'm saying? Not that you can't make a funny spy movie.
When Jor-El speaks, you don't feel the gravity of a father sending away his only child. You don't feel the tragedy of a man accepting the end of his world. You feel exposition. And when you lose that emotional foundation, Superman becomes unmoored. Jonathan Kent is another casualty of this misunderstanding. Jonathan Kent is not there to make Clark feel weak or confused. He is there to teach discipline, empathy, and emotional control.
Well, but the Jonathan Kent did confuse Clark, I think. And I'm only going against the grain here, okay? Because I feel like both movies are flawed. But right now we're bashing on James Gunn's movie. So I'm, feeling like acting like the Jonathan in Man of Steel was the best version of Jonathan, which isn't necessarily what he's doing. That's flawed. Because that Jonathan confused Clark and made him think that his power and ability was more important than lives, and that's crazy. That's crazy. They did not get that right. The kids in the bus that he saved made him think that his powers were more important than lives. His secret, his life himself, made him think that his power was more important than his life. That wasn't the best way to go about it.
In Man of Steel, there's a small but powerful moment when young Clark is bullied. He's physically invulnerable, but emotionally overwhelmed. Jonathan doesn't ask if he's hurt physically, he asks if he's okay inside. That's the lesson. Strength without emotional control is dangerous. Power without restraint is meaningless.
See, but the way he makes him suppress every feeling, I feel like in real life we would have gotten a Homelander out of that. Because the kid never was allowed to feel, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. His Jonathan Kent is probably my bottom tier favorite Jonathan Kent. My favorite is probably Smallville, John Schneider. His Jonathan Kent was a real man. He struggled. He did the best he could. He was a great example to Clark.
Remove that, and Clark becomes reactive instead of reflective. He becomes loud instead of composed. And Superman should never feel emotionally uncontrolled. He should feel centered, anchored, calm, even in chaos. This brings us to...
But even on Superman and Lois, I think the first or second season, he starts to lose his cool, and he takes out some soldiers, but he brings himself down. It's okay if he shows emotion. What's not okay is if he goes too far, like in the DCEU, where we're wondering if he's ever going to snap off the handle because we see future versions of him literally pulling out the heart of Batman. You know what I'm saying? That's what I don't like. I don't like looking at him and saying he could just fly off and turn evil anytime. Anytime.
One of the most telling moments of disrespect, the Supergirl trailer. There's a scene played for humor where Krypto the Superdog pees on a magazine featuring Superman. On the surface, it's just a joke, harmless, right? But jokes reveal philosophy, and this joke reveals everything. That moment tells the audience...
I don't like that, but it's not one of those things that can ruin a movie. That's what I'm like. People are acting like the movie's going to be bad because of that. I don't like that. I would have gone a different way. But I'm also not a movie writer. And a lot of times in movies, you have to do things that people don't like Lex Luthor in James Gunn's Superman. I hated that character. They made me hate him the way he was. But it was done well because I had this hate. I'm like, man, he's so evil. Physically and, emotionally abusing a woman and killing Malik. um, an innocent, you know what I mean? Like, and not and wanting to kill people over just because they chose Superman. You know, I hated that character, but it was necessary. If I was writing him, I probably wouldn't have written him that way because I'd be like, I don't like that. You know, and I don't know.
Exactly how James Gunn sees Superman. Not as a godlike symbol, not as a mythic figure, not as an aspirational ideal, but as just another guy, a public figure, a working professional, a 9-to-5 hero whose image can be casually mocked, even literally pissed on for laughs.
Yeah, but wasn't Zack Snyder doing the same thing? He was trying to make a Superman that was just a regular guy. He's not perfect. Like, these are the things are like things that he said, I'm pretty sure. And then in Batman versus Superman, he's mocked. He's got his statue getting sprayed on, false god. Like, it's the same story. Like, do we get that? It's the same story. Now, that's just how I feel, guys. Let me know in the comments if you think that way. If you think that, like, sometimes we forget that the original, I mean, that Man of Steel and, you know, the new one and the 78, they're all based off the same character, and it shows.
That is not accidental humor. That is intentional demystification.
Well,
When
yeah,
you allow a
it's not
gag like that, you're telling the audience, this character does not deserve reverence. And once reverence is gone, Superman stops being Superman.
Maybe not in Supergirl's movie. In his own movie, yeah.
James Gunn's defenders often argue that this makes Superman more relatable. But relatable to whom? Superman was never meant to be relatable in the traditional sense. You're not supposed to see yourself as Superman.
These are some of the same complaints that people were complaining about Man of Steel. He shouldn't be relatable, you know. He shouldn't be having all these emotional problems like a regular human. You know, he shouldn't be showing us how, you know, he's crying because somebody put a beer on him or because, you know, it's like, it's the same complaint. I get exhausted, guys. I get exhausted.
Supposed to see what humanity could be because of Superman. That's the difference. Superman is not the mirror. He is the standard. When you strip him of that status, when you turn him into just another flawed
See, they all do that, though. They all strip him of that status, and they all turn him to a standard while trying to hang on to that in the same way.
Professional navigating workplace stress, you don't modernize him. You shrink him. That is not evolution. That is erosion. And this erosion becomes terrifying when you look ahead, because Brainiac is coming. Brainiac is not an emotional villain. He is pure logic, cold calculation. He doesn't hate Superman. He studies him. He doesn't seek revenge. He seeks knowledge. He will destroy entire worlds without emotion to preserve information. Against a properly written Superman, Brainiac represents an ideological threat, a challenge of intellect, morality, and restraint. Against a weakened Superman, he represents humiliation. If Superman already struggles against grounded threats, what exactly are we meant to believe will happen when Brainiac arrives?
That is such a good comic.
The pattern
Oh, I think I got it right here. I was using it the other day. Yeah.
is obvious. Superman will lose. Repeatedly, he will be overwhelmed again. And eventually, someone else, likely Lex Luthor, will step in to save the day. And that's where the story truly breaks. Because once Superman needs to be saved, he is no longer the axis of the universe. He becomes a plot device, a stepping stone for other characters.
I don't know if that's the way it's going to go or not. It may. It may not. I don't know.
A narrative tool to elevate villains, anti-heroes, or smarter humans. And this is only the beginning of the problem. Why James Gunn's storytelling actively shrinks Superman. To understand why this version of Superman feels wrong, you have to understand James Gunn's creative instinct. Gunn doesn't build myths, he dismantles them. His entire storytelling identity is rooted in subversion. He takes archetypes and strips them down, exposes their flaws, mocks their seriousness, and replaces reverence with irony.
I think Zach did the same thing. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong.
Approach has worked brilliantly in other franchises because those characters were never meant to be gods in the first place.
Peter Quill literally was part celestial. I'm just saying.
James Gunn fundamentally believes that audiences connect more with characters who are embarrassed, humiliated, emotionally fragile, or socially awkward. In his worldview, relatability comes from vulnerability, and vulnerability in his films often manifests as failure being laughed at, being
See, but even Christopher Reeve's Superman was vulnerable. You know, that's why he ended up doing what Jor-El told him not to do, which was supposed to have consequences and never did, which was turn back time. Which I really hate that movie didn't address that at all.
Overpowered, being dismissed, or being publicly embarrassed. That philosophy is poison for Superman, because Superman's vulnerability was never physical, it was never social, it was moral, emotional, philosophical. Superman's conflict has always existed above the battlefield, not within it. His struggle—
I see this in all his movies, all of them.
Was never, can I win? But should I intervene? How much should I interfere? What happens if I push humanity too hard? When you replace those questions with slapstick humiliation or constant defeat, you don't.
Man, that shot looks so good. I gotta see that again.
Hard. When you replace those questions with slapstick humiliation or constant defeat, you don't deepen the character, you flatten him. And the damage doesn't stop at Superman, it ripples across the entire DC universe. Superman is the ceiling of DC's power structure. He is the benchmark. Every other hero and villain is measured in relation to him. Batman's genius matters because he can stand next to Superman. Wonder Woman's warrior spirit matters because she can challenge him. The Justice League matters because Superman anchors it. If Superman is constantly losing, then threats no longer feel special. If Superman needs help every time, then why should the audience believe he's exceptional? And if
I don't mind Superman getting help, but I also wish that he hadn't needed help so much in James Gunn's movie. James Gunn didn't have to write that he was powered down the whole time. He didn't have to write that he got, I mean, I get that the problem was the emotional vulnerability was more important to me than the physical vulnerability. And he could have done better with that. He did have emotional vulnerability, but I think that the physical vulnerability was where his biggest problem came from.
Superman can be mocked, humiliated, and casually undermined, then no one in the universe feels truly important. Humor is not inherently bad. Superman has always had lightness, but humor must protect the myth, not dismantle it. There is a difference between warmth and mockery, between humanity and humiliation. Gunn doesn't seem to understand that distinction. The crypto moment in the Supergirl trailer is a perfect example. That joke isn't harmless. It's philosophical. It tells the audience that Superman's image, his symbol, can be disrespected without consequence. And symbols matter. Superman is a symbol. Once the symbol is treated casually, the entire mythology collapses. You don't see Batman's symbol being treated as a joke. You don't see Wonder Woman being casually ridiculed in-universe. You don't see gods being mocked, unless the story is intentionally tearing them down. So why Superman? Because Gunn doesn't see Superman as a god. That difference changes everything.
He doesn't, but I'm a early Golden Age guy. I really prefer the early Golden Age where Superman is much powered down from what he is today. That's not that he's not powerful. I mean, he can do a lot of things in the early Golden Age. By the 4th year or so, he was like moving buildings. But I do prefer a powered down Superman. Now, having said that, David Cornsweat Superman moves buildings. So if we're acting like that was powerful for Golden Age, he did the same thing. So I like powered down Superman. I think he's more interesting than God Superman, but I also like the godlike version. I like Superman as a thing.
Confusion bleeds into how conflict is structured. Traditionally, Superman stories escalate ideologically, not physically. Villains like Lex Luthor, Brainiac, or Darkseid challenge Superman's values, not just his strength. The fight isn't about punches, it's about worldview. But Gunn's approach prioritizes spectacle-driven defeat cycles. Superman fights, loses, regroups, loses again, and eventually survives through teamwork or intervention. And the most dangerous consequence of this approach is what it does to Lex Luthor. There's a growing sense both narratively and structurally that Lex is being positioned as the real hero of future arcs. The idea that
I hope not. I will be very upset, and that's one of the reasons I'm concerned about Man of Tomorrow. I will be upset.
Lex might save Superman. That Lex might outthink threats Superman can't handle. That Lex might be redeemed or...
Probably they'll have to save each other. I don't see Lex saving Superman. I see Lex trying to pretend like he will so that he can not save him. That's more Lex Luthor. But Lex Luthor just literally like, all right, I'm a good guy. I'll step in. Now, making a deal to save himself so that he can gain control so that he can end Superman, that sounds like Lex Luthor.
Worse, elevated. This is a complete inversion of Superman's mythos. Lex Luthor works because he represents humanity's insecurity in the face of godhood. His obsession with Superman stems from jealousy, fear, and ego. He hates the idea that something greater than him exists, and that it's morally superior. When Lex saves Superman, that tension evaporates. Superman stops being the challenge Lex can't overcome. He becomes a liability, and if the rumored President Luthor angle becomes reality, the problem gets even worse. Lex Lex Luthor as president only works when Superman is above politics, not beneath it. Superman doesn't challenge systems by losing to them. He challenges them by existing beyond them. He doesn't overthrow governments. He exposes moral rot by being incorruptible. But if Superman is weak, then Lex's rise feels earned, and Superman's opposition feels hollow. What makes this more frustrating is that we've already seen how to do this right. Zack Snyder's Superman wasn't perfect, but it understood the assignment. That version of Superman was mythic, heavy, symbolic. He didn't crack jokes. He didn't seek approval. He didn't ask to be liked. He existed.
Okay, a few things. Does James Gunn's Superman crack jokes? I can't think. Or is some of the stuff he just does funny? There's a difference. Second, yeah, he had big problems. Chemistry with Amy Adams wasn't there. Why were they in love at the end? I don't understand. He showed him caring about people in the beginning. He showed him, but during the movie, he didn't seem concerned about the people in the buildings. You know, during the fights in the end and stuff. And then all of a sudden he picks one family and is like, no, I'm going to save you. It's very confusing. I think it just has to do with Zack Snyder's ability of not his ability, but what he was focusing on. He was focusing on, I want to make an epic battle like we see in the comics in real life. I think that's what he was focusing on. So there's a lot to think about with that. He probably didn't think about how it was going to look, you know?
Like a force of nature, and the world reacted accordingly. People feared him, worshipped him, questioned him, and that reaction felt realistic because Superman felt godlike. Humanity didn't know how to deal with something that powerful and moral at the same time. That tension is gone now. Instead, Superman is being positioned as someone who needs to earn validation. This is where Henry Cavill's Superman still lingers so strongly in the public consciousness. It's not just about physique, it's not just about looks.
See, but a lot of Henry Cavill fans like myself, we say we feel like we never actually got to see his Superman. I was finally waiting for a Man of Steel 2, and I'm sad that I didn't get it. I would only say that I wished I had gotten it instead of James Gunn's if I could figure out what that would be, because it might have sucked. You know what I mean?
About gravitas. Cavill's Superman felt heavy not physically, but symbolically. When he entered a scene, the atmosphere changed. People stopped talking. The camera slowed down. The world reacted. That's how mythic characters are supposed to function. They bend the narrative around them. In contrast, the current Superman is bent by the narrative. Marvel can survive irony because Marvel's gods were always written as flawed celebrities. DC's gods were written as myths. Treating them the same is a category error.
These people are all written by the same people. People keep talking about that. I mean, the writers go back and forth from DC to Marvel. It's that's what they've always done.
Gunn is not talentless. He is not incompetent, but he is philosophically misaligned with Superman. He understands.
Maybe talentless. I have no idea. I'm not much for directors, guy. I really could care less about these people. Whether or not he's good or bad, I don't know. I like his movie, but I also like Zack's. Whether or not he's good or bad, I don't know. They have flaws. They do stuff well.
Outsiders. He understands broken people. He understands anti-heroes, misfits, and damaged teams. He does not understand icons that are meant to be believed in, and Superman must be believed in.
I would argue he understood Superman better than Zack did. Zack made it clear he was a Batman guy. And James Gunn made it clear that he's Superman 78, you know, he watched that as a kid when he was understanding movies. And, you know, it's just, I don't know. I think both of them are missing the mark a little bit.
Superman doesn't exist to show us how weak we are. He exists to show us how good we could be. He is a god who chose humility, not a man struggling with relevance. Until that truth is respected, no costume redesign, no casting choice, and no clever dialogue will save this version of Superman. Because when you miss the point of Superman, everything else is just noise.
Well, yeah, it's true. If you miss the point of Superman, everything else is just noise. You know what isn't noise? Hopping over to my Amazon store and finding some Superman stuff just for you. It's all in one place. You don't have to go searching for it. And don't forget, guys, watch another one of my videos and subscribe to Justice Tube. Pretty good video. Pretty fun.